supplements that can help with the low oxalate diet, i.e., augment it, and things you can take to supplement as you detox from oxalates, and potential things that you may be supplementing with that are harmful. And I'm thinking the current craze of high dose vitamin C, as we alluded to earlier. What are the
Yeah.
things you can help take that will help and those that will hinder?
I really think one of the things I accidentally did well 15 years ago, I'm almost 63, so I was 48. So yeah, was take minerals. Do whatever you can to support your mineral levels because as oxalate's leaving your body, it's going to be chelating minerals. So anything you can do to support your key mineral levels. Big ticket guy for most of us is magnesium. Uh, I I almost don't see a person who doesn't benefit by getting more magnesium into their system, but could also be some calcium, zinc, selenium, things like molybdenum that can help with detox and sulfation. Like, so your trace minerals are not necessarily ones that you can ignore because they can be chelated too. So but the thing about taking minerals is that for most of us, that's a pretty gentle way to start. And all we're doing is providing nutrients. So at that point, it's like providing a foundation for your body to be able to take its next steps from. So I really like when people start with some kind of gentle, not necessarily really high dose for sure, but start out with supporting with minerals. Anything you can do as well, which is going to help the immune system function better, because given the immune system is really getting its butt kicked because of all the chronic inflammation and things like that that can be going on in the body. So the immune system will be on high alert. Anything you can do to help it be able to be settled and help it to function in a more balanced way can be a good add here. And I would say most of us are low on vitamin D. And, if you take an ADK kind of formulation, that's probably helpful. Don't overdo vitamin A. That's the one where I get a little bit of the heebie jeebies with. But D and K, a lot of formulations have just D and K in the right proportion in something innocuous like a drop that you can put into a drink or something. And the research on vitamin D says we need probably a lot more than most of us are getting. B vitamins are probably a longer term play, but you need to go carefully with those because they are also like putting your foot on the accelerator. So you don't want to give so much nutrient that your body starts up too much work, and then you have systems that are getting going really high and then crashing, really high and crashing. You also don't want to stimulate too much movement of oxalate again. And some vitamins can do that, especially when you get into mitochondrial support like B6 or B1 or biotin, things like that. I think of those as like the three musketeers. Those are the big ones for oxalate for a lot of people. But some of that can be nuanced. I would always start with a quarter or less of a small dose of anything like that, where you think you might be putting your foot on the accelerator. And if you're currently doing high dose vitamin C, can you take some vitamin C? Yes. Should you be taking thousands of milligrams? In my opinion, no. It's not normal in any way to the human body to have thousands of milligrams coming in. If you're taking in vitamin C in a way that could be reflected easily in your diet, I think that's fine. Most people wouldn't be able to get more than 250 or 300 milligrams of vitamin C from whole foods. And that's only if they are really going after the highest vitamin C foods and eating a lot of them. So, based on research that came out of the area of diabetes, there's a Dr. Bernstein who is wrote the diabetes code. Like, he talks about not taking more than 300 milligrams. And Susan Owens from Triangle Oxalate says don't take more than 250. And there's some reasonable research to say that for most of us, somewhere in there is as much as we should be taking. If you were going to take for short periods of time a bit more vitamin C, then take some of the other things that help you to recycle it, like vitamin E. And things like CoQ10 are good for mitochondria. So that's a good one to add in. So, I really like to play a bit with amino acids and some of these things where people can take a nutrient and perhaps the nutrient's a precursor to something the body can build that will help it, but then the body gets to decide. I like to do some of those kinds of things, which are, I think, a lot easier on us because we're not trying to force the body to do something. So there can be a lot of places to go, but I would always start with minerals first because almost 100% of the people who end up in my practice show some signs of deficiency of at least some of the big guys like magnesium and calcium and iron. And so that's a really gentle place to start. And maybe even try something like Epsom salts, where you get a little bit of magnesium through the skin. You don't have to stress your gut to get it. And because sulfate's one of the things that oxalate competes with. You get a little bit of extra sulfate. That's going to support all that rampant liver problem and gallbladder problem that people seem to have too.
I love my Epsom salt baths now. Monique, do any folks have to be, especially mast cell folks, have to be careful with the Epsom salts because of that?
Always go slow
Yeah.
with any supplement. I start people out with small amounts. And I don't know that mast cell or histamine issues in particular have to worry with Epsom salts, but because sulfate does compete with oxalate. And so you can have potentially more stuff going on there, maybe oxalate being gotten rid of because you're providing sulfate in so that cell has a chance to get rid of some oxalate out. I would just always go slowly with these things.
And last question, I promise, do you have any issues with someone being on a typical multivitamin? We got a question submitted for you just asking if that was okay, if you thought that was fine.
I would probably look to one of the higher quality multivitamins where you've got less additives, because sometimes we have a problem with an additive. I don't always like multivitamins if people don't have a history of them, because there could be something in there that's too much for their system to handle. And we won't know what the problem is if they react, quote unquote, to a multi. So I do like the pure encapsulations one. It's lower dose. It doesn't have a lot of junk in it. But again, if somebody takes something like that, I would say start on a quarter of a capsule, throw that in a smoothie or a drink and see if your body handles a smaller amount before you ever work up to a whole one. It's just, there's so many things about how our bodies use nutrients that we just don't know. So I tend to start with things that are really gentle and daisy chain up to the big guys.